Scrappy Peeps, Suzanna here today to share with you this 2-page layout that features stamping. That is the theme for this month's YouTube hop for A Cherry on Top. So I'm working with Heidi Swapp's Set Sail collection. I also have the coordinating stamps as well as a Simon Hurley painted background stamp that you have seen me use before. So I also have here the new Tim Holtz trimmer, or newer tonic Tim Holtz, and I thought that the arm was on the left hand side near the blade, but apparently no, it is on the right hand side. And so I wanted to cut this piece of paper. I really wanted to incorporate the seagulls that are on the left hand side. I wanted them to still be visible. I really like the way that this particular piece of pattern paper pops the blue sky and water in all of these pictures. So these pictures are of my son and I in Oslo last May. We went on a summer trip for him. My daughter was still in school, which is why we didn't all 4 of us go. And so I have a 4x6 photo, and then I have 3 sets of 4x6s that are actually 3x4s that I've just printed together. And I know I want to create a flap. So I realize that the theme of this is stamping, but I don't, unless I'm using LE Studio, which is not sold by A Cherry on Top, I actually don't do a whole lot of stamping. Largely because I don't know, I'm not really into, it's just, I like it, but I also like embellishments. And so if I'm stamping, I'm either stamping in a memory planner or I'm doing LE Studio because I'm using the embellishments. So I have stamped here on a flap, and that is coming up. But what I'm doing in the meantime is messing up cutting and trying to layer just a couple of papers that add a little bit of variety other than the blue behind as a background that extends over to the right hand side. So I like to try and create balance on my pages, and I have this large piece that's on the left hand side, and so I want to have something on the right hand side that sort of counteracts that, so it doesn't feel like you're on a scale and you're tipping to the left hand side. And while it is not accomplished with paper, it is accomplished that there is balance between right and left, and you will see that. And the uniting factor here, of course, is going to be the photos, because I have 2 4x6s on the left-hand side and 2 4x6s on the right-hand side. So I have cut a piece of smooth cardstock already that is 3x4 with a little bit of a border. It's actually a 1/2 inch border exactly. So it's 3.5 by 4. And I'm just going to put a score line in here because I know that I'm going to create a flap over the photo. I like that this little stamped collage gives you a break in that really bright blue of the sky and the water on this boat tour. So I'm going to start by creating a background, and I love the Distress Oxide on this Simon Hurley stamp. It creates a sky sort of as well as a water that also then becomes the ocean per se, the way that I've stamped it, or beach per se, the way that I've stamped it. So it's very mottled. It's not evenly inked, and that's kind of done on purpose to give texture to the background. And then I'm going to use all Distress Oxide inks, and I will spare you the agony of watching me try and clean most of the stamps, not all of them. But so I'm going to stamp a sun. So these are all stamps that coordinate with the collection. And what I'm doing here is a double inking technique. So I'm going to ink up the top of the stamp with this, I believe that's Speckled Egg, and then my Uncharted Mariner I'm going to do at the bottom, and you can see I've got a piece of ripped paper, and again just to add texture to the stamping, so a little bit of technique in this stamping. And then I'm going to I put the inks away, but I'm going to go ahead and layer yet another layer of that onto this layer that I've already got there, again just to add so the look of the waves, and then those waves coming up on the beach, and you'll see that better in the close-up. So you can see how that ripped edge gives it an asymmetrical finish, as well as the layering of the inking there. So I've done that twice, and it's a really cool effect. So definitely worth trying doubling up on your inks, and they do meld together quite nicely. But don't forget, I intentionally did the top of that that water splash part in that darker color in order to provide more layer there. So just a couple of the sailing boats that I put there, and then I'm going to put a label and stamp some phrases. So the first phrase that I'm going to stamp is adventure, and then the second one is better together. The better together is going to end up being stamped off the label, and I wish I had shifted them down, but because I stamped directly onto the flip itself, it is what it is. And I could have covered it with the label, but I could have actually peeled it off and repeated it, but it is what it is, and sometimes you just have to go with that organic flow of the creative process. So I will do that, and then I will add that as an interactive element to my page. And not only is it an interactive well, it is an interactive element, but it also serves as a break in that photo collage, because all of the photos look the same. This collage and then lifting up to see that other photo on the bottom kind of it makes the layout more visually interesting, and it also provides something that you can obviously interact with. So that is my stamping for this part of the stamping YouTube hop. All of this product is available at A Cherry on Top. The stamps, as well as the inks, as well as the Simon Hurley stamp. I really like those painted backgrounds. I've used them a fair amount as foundations for other stamps. So there you can see that's going to be the flip over the photo, and you see how it gives you that break in the bright blue in the center there. So I'm looking for a photo tab. I really want that gold one because I want to add a little bit more of that sort of yellowy, mustardy yellow gold hint to the layout. Again, I'm looking for some color variation in order to break that up. So double-sided tape, that is the 1/8 inch tape. They're just a really thin tape. And then I knew when I had first set out to stamp, and I could have recut another piece, that I had the basil stripping on the side of it, and so I'm just going to cover that up with some of the washi that goes with the collection, and then I put another piece of washi so that it extends to the front of the page, or the stamped piece, the interactive element there. Double-sided tape on both pieces, that's or the top, the front and the back of the strip there. That is 1/4 inch tape, or no, that is 1/2 inch tape. And then just using my bone folder to brayer that down a little bit so that it creates a more permanent crease. You can see how it's flopping up like that, and some of that is the weight of the basil paper there. So now it is time to go in and add embellishments. I've got the background, I've got the basic idea there, and I thought I would stamp again on the right hand side to put that circle, and then I would put the sailboat on top of that, but I opt out of it largely because it would be sitting on top of the textured basil paper, and I like to stamp on smooth, and that wasn't going to work. So I just decided to get rid of that, and now I'm cutting out a bunch of the tags, or actually I think I only end up cutting out 2 of the tags from the tag paper, because I have all of the embellishments that go with this collection, and I really wanted to use some of them up. So this is my second 2-page layout that I am actually creating with this collection. I think I've created another layout too, not a 2-page layout. So if you're looking for more ideas on how to use this collection, be sure to check out, I have another process video actually. So a little bit about this trimmer. So I am still on the search for the ideal trimmer. I was really hoping that this was going to be it, but I don't think it is, largely because the bar that the cutting surface is on is so far above the cutting surface, which is probably great for cutting reasons, but it's not good in being able to measure small measurements. There's definitely no line for a 1/4 inch. I think there's no line for 6.5, which is, I don't use 6.5, so that doesn't bother me, but I do like to do much smaller cuts, and so it's very hard to see what it is that I'm cutting. I am also one who doesn't really slide. You can see right there the trimmer. You can see that point piece of foam that's sitting on the trimmer bar itself. I forget, I never start with the trimmer slide at the top or the bottom, so I jam a piece of paper in there and I'm like, oh, there's the blade. So you do have to remember to put the blade either at the top or at the bottom. I also find that I get cleaner cuts if the bar is at the top and I pull towards me. I think it has something to do with the amount of pressure that I put down into the blade there. So those are my reviews of the trimmer. It's good clean cuts, but for measuring, those of us who do a lot of measuring, it is a little bit difficult to get smaller, precise measurements. So you can see I used a glassine bag. That's just from my stash to put a tag there. I did punch a hole in it with my multi-size We Are Memory Keepers tool, and I did actually off camera put some twine in, which is also not in the close-up photos, but I just wanted a little hint of that navy blue. So I have that in there. I also like the way that the baker's twine is sort of an indicator to pull here, and that is where the journaling for this story is. I am popping up a couple of pieces of the elements on foam, again, just for shadow and texture and dimension on the page. Something else that I am also going to do, there's 2 other things that I do off camera. I put the title, so I use their puffy foam puffy stickers. They're variegated blue. That's for the title that says Boat Tour, and then I'm also actually going to use from my stash, so it's actually from Heidi Swapp herself, from her store, some light pink, this sort of pinky corally letters that match the pinky coral letter used in the collection, that just says Oslo Fjord, because we were on the Oslo Fjord, and that was what we were touring. And so to give a very boring title, but that's what we were doing, and so nothing punny about that at all. Ha ha ha. So that is pretty much going to wrap up my layout, or the details of the layout. I am going to put a couple of other fun things in. So I had you can see that I had laid out a lot of this stuff beforehand, because with these 2-page layouts, they take forever. And so I decided it was easier if I had just more of an idea of what I was going to do, because I do have all the embellishments, and I tend to go down a rabbit hole when I've got all of the embellishments and I want to use everything. You can see I've got everything on the page there, and so that's part of why I had I hadn't actually laid it all out, but I had a fairly good idea. So this is a YouTube hop. It is stamping is the theme for A Cherry on Top. Be sure to head out to all the other gals' channels in the YouTube description. I've linked you to those below, and leave comments for an opportunity to win a gift card. Enjoy the close-ups. Thanks for stopping in today. I hope you're doing well. Come back again soon. Take care.